For the best prices and service on Pokemon TCG singles and products, check out ccgcastle.com and use promo code Evolutionaries-5 for 5% off your next order.
What's up, guys? En here, and welcome back to another Deck Tech Thursday. And today I'm going to be profiling for you guys my Glaceon Zoroark deck. Two Pokemon very near and dear to me, and super glad that we have them both in a very competitive and playable form. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Gonna start off here with 4 copies of the new Glaceon GX that we got from Ultra Prism. And this guy is really good. So he's a stage 1 water type with 200 HP, so pretty solid. Its ability is Freezing Gaze, which is honestly amazing. Basically, as long as this Glaceon is active, it acts as a Garbodor against your opponent's EX and GX. And what that means is it shuts down all of their abilities. So, as long as Glaceon is active, your opponent can't activate Tapu Lele, they can't activate Zoroark, they can't use Lycanroc. Like, it just shuts so many decks down. Especially if you're able to get this off turn 1, which you are able to with the Energy Evolution Eevee, which I'll explain to you guys in a minute. So, you can essentially get this turn 1 on your first turn and prevent your opponent from benching Lele and searching for a supporter, which could be devastating against your opponent. So, it's really good right there. And its attacks are pretty decent too. Its first one's Frost Bullet. It costs water and 2 colors, and it does 90 damage and 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. We've seen this attack plenty of times before in Darkrai EX, for all the way back in Dark Explorers, and more recently in Umbreon GX. So 2 evolutions have the same attack. That's pretty interesting. And its GX attack is going to be Polar Spear GX, the same energy requirements, a water and 2 colors, and it does 50 damage for each damage counter on your opponent's Pokemon. So, let's say you bring up your opponent's Pokemon and you hit for 30 damage from bench to active, use Polar Spear, now you're hitting that thing for 150, giving it 180 total damage, which will knock out a lot of things. So, overall, a pretty good Pokemon. Definitely have no complaints about it. And of course, we're going to go ahead and play 4 copies of Energy Evolution Eevee to go with that. Now, this is the one I was telling you guys before. Now, the Energy Evolution ability says that when you attach a basic energy from your hand to this Pokemon during your turn, you may search your deck for any kind of evolution that corresponds with that energy, and you evolve it. And you can't activate this during your first turn. So basically, you would just put a water energy on Eevee, search your deck for Glaceon, and just automatically evolve it. Just so amazing. Yeah. We had this back in Furious Fist so many years ago, but I'm really glad they brought it back. Because this just makes so many evolution-related decks just so playable. Alright, next up is going to be the Zoroark half. So I run 3 copies of Zoroark. Pretty standard stuff here. Along with 2 copies of Zoroark GX and 1 copy of the Zoroark from Breakthrough. Now, Zoroark GX is pretty much meta. Every single deck plays it. 210 HP, stage 1 dark Pokemon. Pretty solid, and everything about it's good. Trade. Once during your turn, you discard a card from your hand to draw 2 cards. Really amazing. And Riot is beating. For 2 colors, you do 20 damage for each Pokemon you have in play. And obviously we can't use Trickster GX in this deck because we don't play any Dark Energy, but it's a pretty good GX move too. Now this guy here, when I was testing with him online, he came in handy so many times for both ability and attack. So its ability is Stand-In, which we have seen competitively many times before. Once during your turn before you attack, if this Pokemon's on your bench, you may switch it with your active. So it's basically almost like not exactly a free retreat for your Pokemon, but just to be able to replace it with him. And Mind Jack was still is such a powerful attack. For 2 colors energy, just 10 damage and 30 more for each of your opponent's active Pokemon. Each of your opponent's active, each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Sorry about that. So basically, with a full bench, this guy is hitting for 160 damage with just that double colors. And if it's a full bench against the opponent's EX or GX and you have a choice band on him, that does 190 damage for just a double colorless energy. So yeah, this guy is honestly insane. But most of the time we're going to have a Floatstone attached to him. Mainly because while it's not the worst, Glaceon does have a 2 retreat cost. which you definitely don't want to discard a double colorless just to retreat. And running Manaphy, I tried it. It's just way too risky because more times than not only did it really not come in handy, but it was just a guaranteed 2 prize from my opponents, which that cost me so many games. So that's why I opted for this one, and this has been by far the superior choice for me. And next up for the Pokemon, I just run 2 copies of Tapu Lele. Again, just like Zoroark, meta defining. Wonder Tag, be able to search your deck for a supporter when you bench it, and Energy Drive for 2 colorless, 20 for each energy attached to the Lele and your opponent's active. You don't apply weakness, but you don't apply resistance either, which can come in handy against Zoroark. So, definitely good there. And that does it for my Pokemon lineup. Now for my supporter lineup. Gonna run 4 copies of the new Cynthia that we've gotten from Ultra Prism, which such an amazing support card. You shuffle your hand to your deck, then you draw 6 cards. So I will not say it's better than N, because N still brings hand disruption against your opponent, but it's a really good supporter because you draw a lot of cards without having to discard either. And you don't want to discard too much in this deck. So for Cynthia, it has been working for me very well. And next up is the 2N that I told you about. So, yeah, like I said, honestly, Cynthia is good because you draw less cards later on in the game. Yes, it's true, but you also can disrupt your opponent's hand with that, as I said before, because you both draw for each prize you have, which at the beginning of the game is 6, but as the game goes on, it gets lower and lower. So let's say you're having a bad game and your opponent's having a great game. You have like 4 prizes left, they have 1. Just drop it and drop them down to 1 card. So, N can still make or break games. That's for sure. This will be played in decks until it's rotated. That much I can guarantee. And for our draw supporters, we just gonna end up with 1 copy, Professor Sycamore. Honestly, ever since Cynthia came out, I don't ever find myself running more than 1 Sycamore in decks anymore. Just because you really don't want to discard your hands half the time. And Cynthia just gives you the option to draw many cards without running the risk of discarding stuff like Sycamore does. But you still run at least 1 or 2 Sycamore. I only choose 1, but if you want 2, that's fine. Alright, next up for supporters, I run 3 copies of Guzma. Just because Guzma is still just an amazing supporter. Honestly, at least in my opinion, this will always be better than Lysander. And next up, another huge deal support is going to be 2 copies of Bridget. Just being able to line up your bench with Eevees and Zoroarks just definitely help you set up for the next turn. And for my last one of supporters, I run 1 copy of Malo and 1 copy of the new Cyrus Prism Star. Now the Malo is mainly here just because we run Zoroark, because we activate Malo, search our deck for 2 cards and put them on top of our deck. Then if we have Zoroark on our bench, we just discard guard and just get those 2 cards immediately. So it's almost like we just play a supporter that gets us 2 cards in our hand. And Cyrus I play because it's really good disruption. So what this card says is that you cannot play this card if you don't have any water or steel Pokemon in your active spot. Even though this is in play, there wasn't a run effective almost immediately after the set came out that says that the water and metal has to be in your active. So yeah, this would have been way too good even if it is, you can only run 1 of it and it goes to your lost zone. This still would have been just way too good if the water or metal just had to be in play. And when you activate this card, your opponent chooses 2 of their bench Pokemon and shuffles the rest and all the cards attached to them back into their deck. So let's say your opponent has a bench filled with stage 1 and stage 2. They can save 2 of them, but everything else just goes back in the deck. So this can be really great for disruption. And that does it for the supporters. And now for our items. Just start off here, going to be with 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Really no need to explain this. Discard 2, search for any Pokemon you want. And 3 copies here of Choice Band. Again, really not much need to explain. Additional 30 damage is amazing. Now this is the card I was telling you guys about. That with this MyJack Zoroark can do 190 damage against your opponent with a full bench. So, very, very powerful. Next up here, we have 2 copies of Field Blower, just because Garbodor ends a pain. and we just want to disrupt our opponent whenever we can. Alright, next up is going to be 2 float cells, mainly for our Mindjack Zoroark, so he can stand in and retreat for free into whatever we want. But sometimes we get a Glaceon stuck inactive that we don't have any energy attached to. And again, it is a 2 energy retreat cost, so I really would rather not waste a double colorless just to hard retreat him. So in those situations, you can attach it to your Glaceon too. Alright. Next up here, I'm going to run 2 copies of Rescue Stretcher. Just putting a Pokemon from your discard to your hand is really good. I sometimes use the other effect to shuffle 3 from discard into deck, but very rarely. And now for some interesting item cards of my choice. Gonna run 2 copies of Countercatcher and 2 copies of Palpad. Now, I was actually against Palpad first, because I saw it as that this came out in XY Flashfire and nobody played it then. So I figured, no one's gonna play it now, but it actually has come in handy for me a couple times. Being able to recycle the supporters I needed to draw with Zoroark for game. It has happened a few times, so I guess it can have a spot here for now. And Countercatcher has really won me games like crazy. You can only activate this card if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, but when you activate it, it acts basically as the Guzma without having to switch your active with your bench and without even wasting your supporter for turn. So you just bring out one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And there's been so many times, like I said, even though it sounds situational, it's not as inconsistent as you would think. Because if you never find yourself in a spot where you can run this, it means you're winning. So there's never really much of a need to play this unless you're in a bad spot. But guys, I kid you not, I even went up against Dustmane, Necrozma, Magnezone, and this card got me game against it. So yeah, something I should mention quickly, like Metal, even though it's really hard because Glaceon's weak to Metal, Metal is not an auto loss because of all the disruption that Freezing Gaze puts on your opponent. So the fact that its weakness is not an auto loss, that says a lot about Glaceon, guys. And last up's going to be our energy. So I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 basic water, and 4 double colorless. And with that, that concludes the deck profile. If you guys like this video, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And come back tomorrow for Battle Frontier Friday, where I take on Professor K's Leafeon deck. So hopefully we can make it 2 for 2, guys. Would really like to have a win streak going here again. And I'm confident my old friend Glaceon can do that for me. So, catch you guys later. Hope you have a great day, and see you tomorrow.